it's Megan with Teach Ag 101. So today's topic, I wanted to talk about the teacher's aide because, let's be honest, they can either help make or break you. So when I first started teaching and a kid would ask me if they could be my TA, I almost kind of felt like honored to be the one that they picked to be a teacher's aide for. And I just thought that once they became my TA, like everything would be golden and they'd help take so much work off of my plate. That is not what happened. My first TA I ever had, I thought, like, the first day I had him, he was supposed to be out in the shop working on some stuff. Didn't hear a peep out of him the whole hour. And then he comes back in at the end of class. I said, how'd it go? Did you get everything done? He says, oh yeah, it was great. And I'm like, yes, this is going to be great. This is going to be awesome. And then it wasn't. Because on day 2, he went right back out to the shop again. Didn't hear a peep out of him. And I was like, gonna go just check in. I just had a feeling. I don't know. I just had a feeling. So I walked outside, couldn't find him in the shop. Started walking around my building, and I found him behind the shed smoking. That was the end of that TA. My next experience with a TA, I have a kid to come in, and he's like, hey, I want to be your TA. And I had no clue who this kid was, but I was like, I desperately needed one. So I said, sure, you can be my TA. Well, where it worked out best fitting his schedule was during third hour. In my school, we have a first lunch and we have a second lunch, and then you swap third hours. So he comes in the first day and starts to work, and he works for like 20 minutes, and then he says, hey, I have lunch. And after he left, I was like, say what? Because what that meant was he had first lunch, he'd work for me for 20 minutes, and then he would go take second lunch. So I sent down to the counselors that, like, ain't gonna happen. Like, this kid, I don't even know this kid's name yet, but he's not gonna work out. The thing that I had in my mind and the thing that was actually happening was not meshing, and I was pissed. So after that, I was like, hell no, I'm not taking any more TAs. And then life happened, and it's busy, and you don't have time to get all the stuff done and all the labs prep that you need to get done. So I was like, okay, I'll try this one more time. I ended up having an amazing TA, and it wasn't because I had mad skills picking her out. It was because she already had awesome skills, and I actually saw the value of having a TA at that point because she did such a great job. Okay? So, since that time, I have had some super awesome TAs, both genders, does not matter, they did fabulously. So I wanted to share with you some of the frustrations and hopefully save you from some of those frustrations and maybe scoot you along the path of getting a good TA and making sure that you and your TA are happy. Okay? So to get started, let's talk about what a TA is not. Okay? You are not there to be a babysitter for your TA. A TA should also be someone who is competent enough for you to, like, give them some direction and follow through with it and hopefully problem solve too. Like, I'm not just going to go ship a kid out to the greenhouse and expect them to know how to do everything, but I do expect them to try to figure it out, and if they get stuck and have a problem, either do some research or stop and, like, come check back in. Please, before you make more mistakes, okay? A TA should not be someone who just gets free reign of the shop or the greenhouse or whatever labs you have to just do projects. They're supposed to be there to help you and to make your life better. A TA should not be the type of person that you have to check up on every single day. I had a kid a while ago that loved them to death, but my dang, every job I gave them, it got messed up somehow. I don't even know how. Did not matter what I gave them. They were either super slow, like to the point where I should have just done it myself, and then that would make me like, why do I have a TA in the first place? Or they would mess it up somehow, and I would have to go back and fix it. I ended up, just to get through the rest of the semester with this one, I had to make up like a rubric, a daily rubric for them to follow, and we had to have a sit-down chat, and me just straight up say, like, look, if you were my employee, this is what I expect of you. I'd expect you to be on time to class. I'd expect you to go straight to work, like work the whole hour and get stuff done. Do you think I would hire you again? And they said no. Like, they knew for sure that they had not been a good TA at that point. I said, all right, here's how we're going to do this. Every single day, we're going to, like, report back at the end, and we're going to go through this rubric, and, like, I want to know where you fit on the rubric. And we're going to see if your idea of where you're at on the rubric fits my idea. And I tell you what, it was the worst, like the longest semester of having a TA, I am kind of proud that I made it through the semester and didn't blow a cork about it, but so not worth the time. Okay, so with those said, let's talk about what you could do to make a positive experience with a TA. So, number one is to make sure that you have a purpose for your TA. So, here's my personal opinion. If you have a TA who can come in late and they can work for 5 minutes and then you're out of stuff for them to do, either you don't really need a TA, or here's probably what's actually happening is you are not willing to delegate some of the stuff you have on your to-do list to give it to somebody else. Okay, so here's an example. I don't need to be the one who sets up and preps all my labs all the time. I have a TA that helps, whenever we get a new flower order in for the greenhouse, they are out there getting all the flowers prepped. They check the order that came in to make sure everything that was on the invoice that we got charged for actually came in the box of flowers. If there's any mistakes in them, my TA takes care of that. I had a TA who, we were trying to go through the whole sprinkling system in the greenhouse, get some PVC pipe fixed up. They did it for me. And we talked about the project beforehand. I told them what I expected out of them, and it worked well. It worked great. Okay, another example, why do you have to be the one who's prepping all the coupons for the shop, or making sure that your shop is clean, or that you have all the supplies that you need out and ready for the next lab? A TA could do it. So, number one, again, make sure that you have stuff for them to do. And I would challenge you, if you don't think you have enough stuff for them to do, write down everything you have to get done, everything that's overwhelming you. I used to be really, really proud that I had a big to-do list, and now I've realized, I'm an idiot because I'm never going to get that done. But if you have a huge to-do list, go through that to-do list and ship half of that stuff over to another list that your TA could go on, and start working on that list with your TA. And if you need to, start small. Start with a small project that you are going to test them out with, see what their capabilities are, and then start knocking out your projects. There's so much stuff to do in an ag program. I know that a good TA could help you out. Number two, I would treat them like a hire. Okay, so you have hired an employee. So that means being on time to class, staying until it's done. I should never send a TA out to the shop and have to wonder if they snuck out the back door to go to McDonald's. They should be working, and if they can't handle working, then they don't need to be the TA. Being a TA is a privilege, and if they can't handle the responsibility of the privilege, then they don't need the privilege, okay? Next, you should have a system in place. So when I finally realized that TAs could be a good thing in my life and that I wasn't going to get gray hair from them all the time, I started realizing that even though they were really good at what they did, I was spending the first 5 minutes of class with my TA trying to show them what the project is today, or what are we working on. So I started realizing, and then also while I was in the middle of the day, I would think of stuff that oh, that would be so good for them to do. But by the time the TA had come in, I had already forgotten what I was gonna have them do. So I started making a list. So just grab yourself a notebook. I just grabbed a notebook and I hung it on the wall, and every time I think of something for the TA, I just go write it down. So my TAs know when they come into class to read that note. Sometimes they need a little bit more detail, and so we'll talk for a minute, but most of the time they can get started on the project, and then when they're done with the project, they check it off the list, and then I'll go check on it, follow up, make sure it happened. But if you make sure systems are in place, the kids will know what to do, and they actually appreciate the responsibility, most of them. So make sure that you have a system in place so that you're not detracting from the kids who are actually taking the class, and your TA can just get right to work. Bonus, if you have a shop of any sort, or greenhouse, or a project-based lab, a heavy intense lab that you need to maintain, I would highly suggest that you don't just let kids come to you and ask to be a TA, but you recruit kids to be your TA. So example, for my greenhouse class, I make sure that the kid who's my TA, especially during planting season and our sale time, is a kid who's already taken the greenhouse class, because they know what my expectations are, they already know the system, and I can trust that kid because I handpicked that kid. So make sure that when you have a TA, it should be less work for you. If it's more work, take a step back and to see what you're doing at that point that's making it hard. Sometimes you need to flush kids out. Sometimes a kid who signed up to be a TA just straight up can't handle it, and that's one thing. But most likely it's probably because your expectations aren't clear or your systems aren't clear. Another bonus, if you can have a TA, and this will depend on your school, so check it, but if your TA can go do errands for you, oh my gosh, it's a lifesaver. So for my school right now, I cannot have a TA just running errands for me all semester long, but if we talk to parents and like I have specific days that they're going to go out and like pick up supplies for me, then that's approved. My school will be okay with it as long as we have all the paperwork filled out. So if you can have a TA that can drive and go pick up supplies for you, like think about how many hours that would save in your life. So if you have a pretty frustrating teacher's aide right now, never fear, it can get better. Keep trying, and hopefully some of these tips help you out.